Welcome along. We're putting the focus on the Wednesday afternoon at the Cheltenham Festival now, and the big novice hurdle is, of course, the Neptune Investment Management Novices Hurdle, over 2 miles and 5 furlongs. The thoughts coming up very shortly of Timeform's Dan Barber, but let's have a look at some of the main contenders.
Heading to make their way on towards the second last, and it's Faugheen from The Job Is Right. At the second last, Faugheen is over. The Job Is Right is trying to close the gap. They're clear. Bad mistake. The housekeeper's unshipped and hampered Azorian. But going to the final flight, it's Faugheen from The Job Is Right. Making the way towards the last, Faugheen is steadied right into it and jumps it clear. From The Job Is Right is second, and going up towards the line, it is Faugheen, who's in a different league, heading towards the line. Faugheen and the Ritchie colours for Willie Mullins and Emmett Mullins take this in good style. Back in second is The Job Is Right.
Tom Scudamore riding this horse for the first time. It's been Timmy Murphy on board for the 3 bumper wins. Just shakes Red Sherlock up and gets a decent response as they race towards the final furlong and the final flight. Red Sherlock only has to jump it to win. Can You Spot It has gone into second. The final flight for Red Sherlock, and he soars over it. Red Sherlock, a touch of class to light up quite a gloomy Sunday afternoon here at Southwell. Red Sherlock maintains his unbeaten record with a stylish win on hurdling debut.
Andrew Tinkler has to get to work on Big Hands Harry. The pair of them are together as they make the run down towards the last flight. Medieval Chapel's moving through into challenge for third place. It might be a Henderson 1, 2, 3 yet. Pleasant Company is tired. Royal Boy comes towards the final flight by 2 lengths. Big lead, got over it well. Big Hands Harry touchdown in second position, but it's Royal Boy then who goes clear in the closing stages easily. Big Hands Harry is stablemate in second place.
On this run towards the final flight, but the danger surely now is in front of Un Temps pour Tout. It will be the 11th and final flight. He comes to it now. He saw a perfect stride. Un Temps pour Tout is clear now by 12 lengths. Cole Harden is a long way clear of our Pollyanna, but racing up towards the line, it is Un Temps pour Tout who holds in a Neptune Investment Novices Hurdle entry at the Cheltenham Festival. And now he is Cheltenham bound. Un Temps pour Tout wins for Tom Scudamore.
A break then to Very Wood, and on the near side Briar Hill comes up now. Apache Jack is still battling on the inside. They're coming down towards the final flight, and it's Briar Hill, Apache Jack on the inside. Over the last, Briar Hill leads Apache Jack. Very Wood a couple of lengths further back on the climb up towards the finish. It's Briar Hill in front of Apache Jack and Very Wood, and running up towards the finish, Briar Hill driven out goes on to score.
So, the Neptune, just a word of warning. Probably Dan Barber, a health warning here. Pont Alexandra, just bear that in mind as we talk about Faugheen first of all.
Yeah, he comes with a similar reputation, doesn't he? But I think he's arguably done more on the track, and we'll discuss in the Supreme Novices Hurdle the claims of Josses Hill, for instance. When you think back to in bumpers, Faugheen gave that horse a 22-length beating. The engine isn't in doubt, but what perhaps is in doubt is whether his hurdling technique will stand up to the hurly-burly of a race like the Neptune, where, as we know, down the years, it's got a tremendous track record of actually throwing up horses that excel at shorter distances. I don't see him being in a similar mould, despite the fact I think he's got plenty of speed to go with everything. But yeah, everything he's done in terms of form and in terms of visual impression has been absolutely out of the top drawer. But the trouble is, as I think you might believe as well, his tendency to go left at times and hit one and just be rather idle in that sense and not pick his feet up is the one potential chink in his armour.
I just think if he jumps as moderately as he did at Limerick, it'll find him out, definitely.
The slight difference being, I suppose, that they are those trickier hurdles, those easy fix hurdles, which are a hybrid really. It would be similar to running at Worcester, say, over here, where I think you can forgive a horse who doesn't jump as fluently, and it may get him beaten, but equally I think he's got so much ability that could get him out of trouble whatever happens.
Yeah, well, he's of course unbeaten. So too Red Sherlock. We saw him earlier in the season pulverise the field at Southwell. How impressed have you been with his progress, Dan?
Really impressed. And what's interesting about this horse, one of the things we don't like to see, I'm sure this isn't just apply to Time Farm and me personally, but horses who flash the tail, particularly geldings, it tends to be a sign of temperament, but there's been absolutely nothing in his finishing efforts in maintaining his unbeaten record to suggest there's any worry over his attitude, in fact. And he did all that he was entitled to do on this occasion. He raised his game at Cheltenham, fending off Rathvinden in a really good finish under testing conditions. He seems to have plenty of stamina. His bumper form reads well. But I still can't get out of my head the fact that he flashes his tail. And he's also going into the race on the back of a pretty hard and gruelling slog in that Cheltenham affair. The ground was really bad that day, and that would slightly play against him potentially. But I do also have concerns that if it comes into a real scrap in a more competitive race, whether the tail flashing will manifest into something more sinister.
Owner Michael Buckley loves to have winners on the big stage. His runner here likely to be Royal Boy, who has made really good progress through the year. This is the Iron Stand Maiden Hurdle, over 3 miles earlier on this season at Ascot. Form probably doesn't amount to much, but he looked a pretty impressive horse.
Yeah, he did, and he's unlike the others in that he's coming into this as a second season novice, and maybe that added experience can stand him in good stead. He was impressive this day, undoubtedly. It was a different test, but he showed that he wasn't a slow boat, as we didn't think he was, in fairness, when he came back to win the Tolworth, edging out Joss's Hill, a race in which it looked as though Joss's Hill had his measure, but he showed a really good attitude and probably just showed a bit, it was slightly more streetwise than his stablemate in second, edging that one out on the run in an excellent finish. I don't think that form should be underestimated, despite the number in behind who seemingly didn't give their running. But he does have to raise his game again. We've seen a bit more of this horse. It's possibly fanciful to suggest we're yet to see something approaching the best of him. And will he be able to progress after his relative experience sufficiently to cope with the likes of Faugheen and Red Sherlock and Untempo 2 for David Pipe, who we expect almost certainly will have better days ahead.
Here's the next one we're going to bring you on to now. Untempo 2, British debut at Ascot the other day, pulverised the field. Worth making the point that that horse disappearing in second is a horse called Cole Harden, who had been impressively the winner of 4 of his previous 5 races.
Yeah, included one at Newbury, in which he possibly had the run of things, but he really did assert his superiority in the straight. A lot was made of Untempo 2 prior to his British debut, that when he ran at Haydock first time, because people were critical of the huge fee that was around his neck, over £400,000 to buy him from France. But he didn't disgrace himself behind Zamdiman that day at Haydock, and he really showed what he was about this day. The limitations in the form are probably due to the fact that Cole Harden did jump left. I think he'll be happier going back the other way around, and that's one thing that he could perhaps hold against Untempo 2. But otherwise, I think he's in danger of being underestimated all of a sudden. He came into this country with a massive reputation, and people are arguably guilty of judging him on the fact he was beaten at Haydock as if he hasn't lived up to that home reputation. But I think he put the record straight at Ascot. He could be rated value for any amount extra. And yeah, I don't think he's a second string in the true sense of the word. He could actually be the main hope of David Pipe, whether he'll tell us that or not.
Yeah, and he was third off levels to Petit Zig in a Grade 1 hurdle in France.
Yeah, that reads really well. He had some excellent juvenile form, Petit Zig, and he's raised his game again this season. He did win that graded race in France and was second as well at Ascot in a competitive handicap hurdle. So a lot to like about that form and a lot to like about this horse generally.
I'm backing him, Dan. What are you?
I think I'm going to back him. I think Faugheen's the one that has the potential to rip this field to shreds, but with the slight doubts about the jumping technique, but no doubts about the engine, I would just side with Untempo 2 on the grounds that he too could just be something out of the ordinary.
What a fascinating race that looks, the Neptune Novices Hurdle. That on the Wednesday afternoon of the Cheltenham Festival. Do keep it right here on attheraces.com for all the latest Cheltenham news.